What happened to NeuroDog? Oh, we've talked about this. You can find out if you're curious. But I will repeat it again, I guess, if you want. I did the project. I was very, very tired and burnt out, right? I was working full time. I, in 6 months, built a giant quadruped designed from the ground up and built and assembled in a New York City apartment while working full time and streaming and putting out music. I was really exhausted and I was not in a great place emotionally. And when I delivered it, I had to disassemble it to take it through customs. But then when I was going through customs, you know, they didn't like the look of hobbyist robotics, I guess. There was quite a lot of, you know, wires in there. They had to make sure there weren't any batteries, and I had already taken them out. But they did quite a lot of damage to it. And by the time it got to the UK, there would have been a lot of repairs necessary. And I didn't have time to repair them all before I left. So, you know, Fiddle and I had planned for a time to repair it together, but then I couldn't face it. I just couldn't think about the project anymore. I was so tired, and I was so burnt out on it. And I was really lucky that he was willing to wait with me, and that he never ever pushed me. And so, yeah, it's still there. It's still broken. I was a busy bot back then. I don't think I became a busy bot. And it's not terribly broken. I suspect that it wouldn't take more than an afternoon to get her up and walking, but by that time, we had access to, yeah, he is a really good guy. But by that time, we had access to humanoids. And so, that's been, I think, both of our priorities now. Just because that seems probably like it has more potential applications. And like it could be a cooler stream than the dog stream. Honestly, I don't know that the dog stream offers that much. I don't think that my build at $3,000, which I know it sounds like a lot, but in robotics, that's a very, very small budget, for a large quadruped, right? It has meme potential for sure, but I don't think that it could ever, yeah, it's nothing in a robotics budget. Yeah, I built that whole thing, including R&D, including all of the parts that didn't work, including replacing everything, right? Including all the tools that I needed to fabricate it, right? Not even just materials, right? Everything for that robot was under $3,000. Remember that streaming was a hobby when I started that project. Right? I hadn't spent much money on it. I never intended to, you know, right? So, I couldn't afford to spend more than $3,000 on it. And I didn't want the money to come from Vettel because I didn't even know if I'd be able to do it. And I made that clear a lot. I was like, 6 months, $3,000, a 3-foot tall quadruped, a meter-high quadruped is quite a task. The R&D alone for a whole team of people working on that would never match that. And I had a full-time job at the same time. Is it not still a hobby? Well, it's more complicated, right? I definitely spend more money on streaming now because I make money streaming, and so I try and reinvest the money that I make streaming back into streaming, right? I mean, obviously not all of it, but yeah, right? I have more money to spend on streaming now because I make more money streaming now. At the time, I had no idea I would ever make money on streaming, right? So I didn't think, I didn't think at all that it would ever be like, oh, I could spend right now. I think I could allocate probably 10K to a robotics budget to build something. But at the time, right, 3K was all I could possibly imagine. I couldn't imagine getting more than that from people. I couldn't imagine building something that big for less, and I couldn't imagine, I couldn't imagine ever getting that much, even. So I set the goal, and I was like, if the communities involved want to contribute 3,000, then I will do my best. I have no idea if this is possible. And I'm still amazed that it even happened. I think that's crazy. Y'all saw it walk, right? I would love to come back to that project at some point, but it just doesn't seem that important now because I think we're both more interested in the potential of a humanoid. And the idea back then was maybe it could go to a con. And I'm telling you guys, it's not nearly stable enough to go to a con, right? For a con, right, you need such long battery life. You need it to work over network, and network was the big issue. Like, that would just never work. That would just never work, right? Walk is a good term for it. I don't know what you mean by that. It walked. Do you not understand how it walks? You guys have seen videos of it walking, right? Cause a dog walk. Wait, that is cute. I'm so dumb. I'm so dumb. Thank you. Yeah. So yeah. I don't know. Roll back the tape. The wagging tail was super cute. Yeah, I think it was really fun. But also, she said that she didn't really want to be in a dog. And she'd already been in a dog. I know it was tiny. But yeah, the idea of the 3-foot tall quadruped was, you just made fun of it falling over? I don't think you guys ever saw it fall over. I'm trying to think. I don't think I ever put out any videos of it falling over. God knows it fell over plenty, but I don't think, if you were in the Discord server, you did, but I don't think anyone outside of the Discord server did, right? And I don't recognize that person's username, so I don't think that they are. Yeah, only in Discord. Well, yeah, ready, because you were in the Discord, right? Oh, the small dog fell over. Yeah. But no, the big dog, the 3-foot dog. I never put out any videos of it falling over. I think I only ever put out like 2 videos of it walking, of it like moving at all. Well, that's not true. I think I only ever put out 2 videos. But yeah, I kind of thought like, well, why would I put out videos now? Because when I bring it over there, we're gonna make videos of it, you know, with Neuro. And then I just wasn't up to it, man. I just wasn't up to it. And I think that's okay. I don't know, be kind to yourself. And it kind of relates to what I have to say about this. How do you motivate yourself to keep working on something? I think that a human has in them enough motivation to work on a lot of things. I think that they have enough motivation to work on everything that they need to do. And I think trying to generate motivation almost never works, at least not long term. So, I think that you should do the things that are exciting to you at any given moment. Like, for example, at this point, Petal and I are both more excited about the idea of putting her in a humanoid than we are about getting the kinda cheap robot dog working. We're always gonna be battling with the materials that I used because I built it as cheaply as I could. And when you build it around the actuators you're going to be using, and you use really cheap actuators, it's not trivial to switch out the actuators. I'd have to basically redesign everything to replace the motors, and we're going to be struggling against those motors to have a dog that big, no matter what. Yeah, so basically I'd have to completely redesign the dog from the ground up to make it stable enough to ever take to a con, and even then we'd be fighting all of the network issues, right? NeuroCar was pretty mechanically simple on our end, but you know, the networking was a challenge and it went wrong, right? So, like the first day, we couldn't get her to reliably connect. So, you know, if you ever fix it, you could auction it like the car. I guess there's just so much work involved in getting that thing running. It's like a long process and I don't really feel like automating it, you know? So, yeah, NeuroCar was already a car. Yeah, right? I was very burnt out by the time I got home. And I didn't want to set up a time to go back. I didn't want to take more time off work. I didn't want to have to think about it anymore. And by the time I was in a place to think about projects again, yeah, we had a new one. So what I would say is if you find that you cannot motivate yourself to practice an instrument, go do something that you're already motivated enough to do. And maybe in a week you'll find that you do have the motivation to practice that instrument, or maybe you won't, and maybe you shouldn't play that instrument. It's kind of how I feel, right? I think a little bit of a push is good sometimes. I think working on something with friends can often help you, setting accountability goals, co-working, things like that. But personally, I think that you should do what you're already motivated to do instead of trying to push yourself to do what you're not motivated to do. That is what I do, and it works out pretty well for me. But maybe I am lucky, and maybe that wouldn't work for a lot of people. Play your instrument, you need to learn a lot of basic music first, notes and stuff. I mean, the same is true about piano, right? But as a kid, I never felt that way about it, right? There were days when I didn't want to practice, and I had to anyway. But was Neuro happy about her car? Did she have fun? Sad to hear you got burnt out? Oh, I didn't get burnt out by the car. The car was a very small project. That was just for fun. But I was very burnt out by the dog project. I think that was kind of crazy. I still can't really believe I did it. But yeah, you struggle a lot with motivation even for the things you want to do. Well, that sounds like maybe it's a different issue. That sounds maybe like depression, actually. I don't know. But yeah. You were scared to see that child die. Yeah, that's me. That was me. Person on Twitter thought I was a child. But yeah, what did I do on my stream? What do I do on my stream? Guys, what do I do on my stream? We do tech stuff. We do music stuff. We yap with friends. I'm a musician and an engineer. And when Slay the Spire 2 comes out, we're gonna be playing Slay the Spire 2. Yeah, I don't know. We go bald. Friendslab games, kill me. Podcaster, kill me. Why are you guys doing emotional damage? Oh, man. But yeah, no, that's what happened with the dog, is it's just there, slightly broken, and I don't think we're probably gonna fix it anytime soon. Maybe someday for posterity, but at least not right now. We've got other projects, and I really appreciate that he let me step back from it when I was unable to think straight. If y'all were in the Discord for that, you know that I was kind of unraveling mentally. Like, I was like, I need to focus at work. Like, I'm scared that I'm not doing enough at work, but like, I need to get this project done, and there's like a timeline on it, and this is like such a crazy tight timeline, and I don't have time to test everything. It was really, really, really rough. And I wasn't feeling very good. And there was so much pressure. I haven't talked about this much, but so when I was rated, right, how do I explain this? For a long time, right, when you're an engineer, and I don't know if everyone has had this experience, I feel like there is a lot of pressure to be smart, right? Like looking stupid is very scary, especially when you're a young engineer. And when you're a young engineer, right, when you're early in your career, you don't know much, right? You know what you learned in school, you learned, stuff from side projects and hobby projects, but you don't know, you don't have like career experience. And there's so much competition and there's so much pressure, and engineering salaries are high, even though we don't have a ton of education, which is not like other fields, and that's justified by saying like, oh, we're really smart and other people can't do what we do. But I think we all know on some level that that's false, right? We all know on some level that that's not true. And it's not just imposter syndrome. People say like, oh, Ellie has imposter syndrome, but it's not true. I don't feel like an imposter. I feel like I'm getting the standard experience of a person early in their career in engineering, which is I don't know a lot about what I'm doing, right? I think it's normal, reality syndrome, to know that you don't know a lot. When you sort of straddle real space and fake space, right? I am this robot. I'm this, engineering robot, right? And I sing and I play music and I'm a character. I'm an anime character. But I'm also, a real woman, right? And these characters are pretty close together, right? We have a lot of the same experiences. We're basically the same person, but there are things like as a character, my ability to be an engineer is limited by my ability to be an engineer as a real person, right? So my dad would say this thing in D&D, which is you can play a character stronger than you are, but you can't play a character smarter than you are. And that's true, right? And I never set out to play a smart character. It's not what I set out to do. For a long time, I was dumb little robot. We didn't really do any engineering content on stream, and I didn't really talk about being an engineer, right? I talked about I don't know, dumb stuff. What did I talk about? Beans? Right? I kind of liked that this was a place where I didn't have to be smart, right? I felt so much pressure all the time at work. I felt like I never knew what I was doing. Like I was always out of breath, catching up, figuring out what was going on. And I liked that I didn't have to do that here. I liked that this was a place where I never had to worry, do people like me because I'm smart? And then all of a sudden, right, it was sort of offhanded that I mentioned it during the raid, right? I was kind of stream of consciousness during the raid. Like anything anyone said to me, I was just like, yeah, okay, right? And robot dogs were mentioned, and my chat was moving so fast. I'd never seen it go that fast. I didn't even know how to read it that fast when it was going like that. And, someone mentioned robot dogs, and I was like, I know something about that, right? And suddenly, my personality to this whole new group of people, a group of people so much larger than my old community ever was, my whole personality to them was, she's smart. That's her selling point, is she's a smart girl. And I felt so much pressure to be smart. I felt so afraid. And there were people trying to figure out on the internet whether I was actually that smart, right? And I never claimed I was. It was terrifying. Can I sing happy birthday to your friend Shiro? Of course. Let me get my banjo. Yeah, but no, I was so scared, right? And I was so scared that now people only liked me because I was smart. And if I looked stupid, then not only would I look like I'd been, not only would I have no value, I would also look like I'd been lying. But I never said I was smart. And it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. And for the first time in my life, I really did have imposter syndrome, right? I felt completely, I felt like I was a fake in every way, because people would come in and be like, my super genius robot waifu. And I was like, I'm not a super genius, right? I know as much as a robotics engineer early in her career, because I'm a robotics engineer early in my career, and I can't pretend to know more, and I don't want to pretend to know more. But it manifested in the funniest ways. I suddenly got really scared. I'm really bad at games. I'm not very good at any kind of game, not even puzzle games, not even strategy games. I'm good at chess, but I'm not good at most games. And suddenly I was afraid to play my favorite games that I'd been playing on stream for years. I was scared to play them because I felt like, am I unraveling? No, this is all stuff that happened in the past. This is all stuff that happened a long time ago. It's been well over a year, and I feel like the people who are here now, I don't know, they know what I'm about, they know what I'm capable of. Yeah, my old motto was fake gamer girl, right? Yeah, a lot of people met me through the swarm. Most people, I think, met me through the swarm, and then kind of eventually through my own stuff. It was sort of complicated how it happened. So, I've showed the graphs before because I find them interesting, but anyway, I went from being very consistently around 30 I had a few months where I averaged 40, but they were not the norm. I was averaging around 30 for most of the time that I was streaming, and I was very happy there. I didn't have any ambitions of more. It was just a place to play music and be silly online. And then the raid happened, and I suddenly had like a character to play, and it mattered that like my name was out. I had to like worry about people figuring out who I was, and I had to hide things about myself, you know? I had to hide things for safety and security, and I had to be someone else. And part of the way that people wanted to see me, even when I insisted I'm not that smart, people were like, oh, she doesn't know how smart she is. And like, listen, I think the average person is pretty smart, man. I don't know. I have no idea how to estimate that. I don't think that there is a useful way to estimate that. IQ is pretty bogus in the scheme of things, and only losers take IQ tests. So like, yeah, still to some extent people find me that way. But most of my community, right? It's different when someone finds me and they're like, you're that girl who's a robotics engineer, right? And maybe they think, oh, she's a genius. But right, most of chat doesn't, because most of my chat knows me. At that time, it was like everyone who knew me, it was like 30 people, right? It was like 30 people. And they were totally outnumbered by now thousands of people who expected me to... You randomly listened to Magnificent and got curious about who made it. I didn't make Magnificent. I just sang on it. That was the work of Kinaru, who's amazing. And you should check out their work. But they just asked me to do vocals on that song. I didn't write it, and I didn't do anything on it except sing. But yeah, check out Kinaru. Amazing musician, producer, songwriter. But yeah, no. So I'm not a super genius. I don't know anyone who is.